There are places on Earth where borders dissolve into green silence, where laws mean nothing, and people live completely off the grid, unseen by the modern world. Deep in the Amazon, communities exist that have never filed taxes, never voted, never called the police, and never touched a phone. These aren't people lost in time, they are people who have chosen separation to protect their way of life from the world that once destroyed it. Archaeological evidence shows humans have lived here for over 13,000 years, mastering the forest long before we began to study it. When Europeans arrived, they brought invisible killers, disease, violence, and greed, wiping out entire nations within a single generation. During the rubber boom, the forest became a prison. Thousands were enslaved, tortured, and killed to feed the world's hunger for profit. In 1967, Brazil created FUNAI, a government agency meant to protect isolated tribes, though promises on paper rarely matched reality. Today, over 100 uncontacted or minimally contacted groups are known to exist, scattered across vast forests larger than entire nations. From above, their homes appear as faint clearings in a sea of green, silent evidence of lives lived beyond the reach of modern society. In 2008, aerial photos captured uncontacted people signaling for outsiders to leave, a defiant message from a world fighting to remain unseen. Today, satellites help track what human eyes can't, spotting new clearings, fires, and movements deep within the Amazon's endless green. When rare images surface, they spark global debate, proof of existence for some, a threat of exposure for others. Field teams work under constant pressure, racing against storms, funding cuts, and the danger of being discovered by those they protect. For those who remain uncontacted, the forest is both home and shield, every sound, every current, every shadow, a part of their living map. But the outside world is getting closer. The buzz of chainsaws now carries farther than birdsong, a warning echo through the forest. Protecting these lands means walking for weeks through silence, documenting what shouldn't be there, and hoping to leave without being seen. Illegal mining eats through the forest like acid, poisoning rivers, scarring the land, and pushing entire communities into flight. In the quiet hours, even the forest sounds uneasy. Chainsaws echo in the distance, reminders that safety here is always temporary. Maps reveal what the jungle hides, the invisible war between protection and exploitation, drawn in pixels and policy lines. For those who live here, the forest holds both everything they need and everything that threatens them, safety and danger intertwined. The arrival of Europeans rewrote the fate of an entire world. Within a single century, invisible diseases carried across oceans erased nations, leaving behind only echoes in the forest and memories whispered through generations of survivors. Those who lived fled deeper into the forest's embrace. Isolation became protection, a shield against extinction. They carried fire, memory, and language into the unknown, choosing silence over surrender to a world that had betrayed them. Decades later came the rubber boom, second conquest, wealth for some, horror for others. Forest paths turned to chains, rivers to prisons, and once free people to forced labourers beneath the whip of profit. In reports written in distant capitals, words like progress masked what was truly happening. The slaughter of cultures, the theft of land, and the quiet decision by some to disappear forever into green refuge. When governments finally began drawing borders to protect what remained, it was already almost too late. Policies like FUNAI in Brazil promised protection, but promises fade faster than forests under pressure. Maps filled with lines declaring safety, yet on the ground, the forest stayed vulnerable. Helicopters, chainsaws, and miners ignored the ink that claimed authority over places no law truly reaches. Across the basin today, over 100 uncontacted or barely known tribes still exist, each one a universe of knowledge, language, and survival, balanced precariously between invisibility and discovery. To protect them requires not only borders on paper but vigilance in the air, satellites watching, planes scanning, and the moral courage to say no when greed demands entry. Most of what we know about these groups comes not from meeting them, but from their traces. Footprints in soft soil, smoke rising at dawn, gardens that bloom unseen by outsiders. Each mark tells a story, where they walk, what they grow, how they live unseen. It's archaeology in real time, a dialogue written in mud, leaves, and distance. In rare moments, the unseen become visible. A single photograph from the air reveals painted bodies looking upward, not in wonder, but in warning. Go no farther, this place is ours. When those images reached the world, they sparked fascination and outrage. Some saw proof of resilience, others saw danger, the fragile balance between protection and exposure suddenly laid bare. From space, satellites traced the thatched roofs of communal houses, malokas, geometric fingerprints of survival. Every change in pattern hints at growth, migration, or threat moving silently beneath the canopy. The data flows like a heartbeat, pixels turning into protection plans. But technology alone cannot defend a world that still values extraction over existence. When contact finally occurs, it's never casual. A meeting of two worlds separated by centuries, often born from fear, hunger, or flight. One touch, one breath can decide life or death. In 2014, 17 people emerged from the forest seeking help. They carried no possessions, only exhaustion and stories of violence from outsiders. Their arrival was both miracle and warning. Health workers moved quickly, offering medicine and vaccines, barriers against invisible enemies. In those moments, science met survival, and empathy became the only bridge between worlds. Language, too, faces extinction. Some tongues are spoken by fewer than 100 souls, entire philosophies condensed into sounds that may never again be heard when silence finally wins. Each word carries a map of memory, how to heal a wound, how to read the sky, how to greet the river. When a language dies, an entire way of being vanishes with it. In academic halls, researchers debate what is confirmed and what remains mystery. Yet for those who live it, the mystery is survival itself, the daily decision to stay unseen and endure. Not everyone agrees on how isolation should endure. Some argue that contact is inevitable, but survival now depends on medicine, education, and the careful merging of worlds once divided by fear and distance. Others say contact is the final destruction, that every handshake brings disease, every road brings loss. They fight instead for silence, for untouched land, for the right to remain unseen. Across policy tables and conference halls, the debate rages. Is isolation mercy or neglect? Is connection salvation or invasion? Between the two lies a question with no simple answer. Religious missions add another chapter, driven by faith, blind to consequence. In pursuit of salvation, they walk into worlds that never asked to be saved, sometimes leaving tragedy where grace was promised. The death of a missionary on a distant island reminded the world that not every door should be opened, not every silence should be broken. Some frontiers exist to remain sacred. Even with laws in place, protection is fragile, governments change, priorities shift, and greed finds cracks in every system. Enforcement becomes a race against those who profit from destruction. In remote corners, illegal mining and logging creep forward. Machines hum where birds once sang, and the first warning for uncontacted tribes often comes too late, a sound carried on wind. For those who choose isolation, daily life is shaped by the forest. Every leaf, river, and track is a lesson. They know the difference between survival and destruction by instinct alone. Children grow learning to read the forest language, to see what others miss. Knowledge flows from elders to the young, unbroken by writing, carried only by voice, rhythm, and repetition. Outside sounds now reach deeper. Chainsaws, helicopters, unfamiliar sickness. Isolation is no longer protection, but a race against time, as invisible forces push ever closer to their hidden worlds. For those defending these lands, the struggle is relentless. Rangers, scientists, and advocates risk their lives, walking endless miles through dense terrain to mark, record, and protect what remains untouched. They face more than exhaustion. Threats, ambushes, the constant knowledge that each discovery might expose a people trying desperately not to be found. Courage is measured here in silence. Maps reveal the battle, where legal protection meets illegal desire. Lines overlap like scars across the green body of the forest, each one a memory of conflict unresolved. In these overlapping worlds, every action holds weight. The forest gives everything: food, medicine, shelter, and yet within its same soil, the tools of its undoing lie buried. Knowledge here is ancient science, knowing which root heals, which bark poisons, which vine holds water when drought comes. It's a library written in living matter, read only by touch. Now, climate shifts blur the balance. Drought replaces rain, rivers shrink, and once reliable seasons betray those who depend on their rhythm. The forest itself begins to change its voice. For some, that voice grows weaker with fear. They hear machines, smell smoke, and wonder what unseen danger waits beyond the next bend in the river. Survival means movement again. To document this reality, advocates record testimonies, fragments of warning from those who live near the edge. Each word becomes evidence, a plea for action before silence spreads farther. Political will can build or break the walls protecting these worlds. One election can open the floodgates, another can rebuild them. The fate of nations decided by shifting promises. For those who watch from afar, it's a distant issue. For those inside the forest, each policy, each decree, each budget cut is felt like thunder rolling through the canopy. Think of these uncontacted tribes as living archives, each community a library of human knowledge bound in memory instead of books, carrying the wisdom of how to live within the forest, not above it. When a culture vanishes, it isn't only lives lost, it's languages, medicines, and philosophies disappearing into silence. What remains are questions we can no longer ask, answers we will never translate. In legal terms, they belong to nations whose laws they never accepted. Borders drawn by others slice through lands they have known for thousands of years, maps that define without consent. International declarations promise protection, but promises fade when profit calls louder. The right to self-determination means little without the will to enforce it beyond the politics of a single election. From a medical lens, isolation means fragility. A handshake, a cough, even a shared breath can bring death. For those untouched by modern illness, contact becomes a quiet catastrophe. Immunity built over centuries elsewhere doesn't exist here. To them, the common cold is a plague. Distance isn't just choice. It's the only cure for a world they never invited in. Ethics draw an invisible line. Do we have the right to intervene, even to save lives? Or is true respect letting people define safety in their own terms, even when it means loss? The question is not about technology or progress. It's about coexistence, whether humanity can accept difference without the need to change it, whether we can protect what we do not fully understand. Today, scientists can track deforestation in real time, watching as the green pulse of the forest fades pixel by pixel. Yet seeing destruction doesn't always mean stopping it. Governments talk of protection while industries plan expansion. The result is a fragile balance. A system always one budget cut, one election, or one storm away from collapse. Political change moves faster than recovery. In years of neglect, the damage multiplies. Rivers poisoned, trees gone, and tribes forced closer to a world they never asked to join. When new leaders arrive, they speak of renewal, of conservation. But promises written in speeches rarely echo where the forest breathes. Real protection happens far from microphones and cameras. Climate change presses harder every year. Rains shift, crops fail, and old rhythms fracture. For isolated groups, the forest heartbeat, once predictable, becomes uncertain, strange, and sometimes silent. Some will adapt as they always have, moving deeper, finding new rivers, learning new signs. Others may face a choice they never wanted: isolation or extinction. Satellites reveal the approaching danger. New roads, illegal mines, fires burning unchecked. Each glowing dot in the data is a warning flare for lives that depend on distance. As night falls, families gather by the fire, flames flicker on woven cloth, and the slow rhythm of voices tell stories older than history, reminding them who they are and why they endure. Far away, officials debate numbers and maps, unaware that each line they move redraws a life. The forest may be distant, but its fate is written in every decision made here. Screens glow with data, maps pulsing with colour and code. For the researchers, the forest becomes a puzzle of patterns, but behind those pixels live people, invisible yet profoundly present. In hidden clearings, rituals continue. Dancers move by firelight, their gestures tracing stories of creation and survival. Every motion a vow to remain, uncontacted, unbroken, unforgotten. As dawn returns, mist drifts across endless green. The forest exhales, ancient and alive. For now it endures, holding within its silence the last living memory of a world apart.